If you've got a fig tree in your yard, there's a good chance you stood in front of it at some point with a pair of pruners thinking, I should probably trim this thing, but I have no idea where to start. And with fig trees, that hesitation usually leads to one of two things. Either people cut way too much or they don't cut anything at all. And surprisingly, both of these mistakes can actually reduce the amount of fruit your tree produces. So in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how I prune my fig tree each year to keep it healthy, manageable, and producing a lot of fruit. Now, normally fig trees are pruned when they're dormant in late winter. But depending on where you live, your fig tree might never really go dormant. Mine didn't this year. We're in late winter and it looks as good as it did in the spring and summer. We've had literally no frost this year and it's been one of the warmest winters I've had. So if your tree already has some leaves or new growth starting, don't worry, the pruning method I'm going to show you still works perfectly. Now, one thing you'll notice about this tree right away is it's only about 4 years old and I've pruned it every year, so there really isn't any dead wood in here. If you have dead wood in your tree, that's the first thing you want to remove. Just cut all that dead wood out and then you can start with me right here. Once that dead wood is out, you want to shape the tree so it stays productive and easy to manage for years to come. And once you understand a few simple rules, pruning fig trees is actually one of the easiest fruit tree pruning jobs in the garden. Before we start cutting anything, it helps to understand how fig trees grow. Fig trees are extremely vigorous growers. If you just leave them alone, they'll send up long vertical shoots every year and the tree will keep getting taller and wider. And at first that might seem fine, but after a few years, you end up with a tree that's too tall to harvest easily. The interior becomes crowded and a lot of fruit ends up way at the top where you can't reach it. Another really important thing to know is that figs produce fruit on new growth. That means the shoots that grow this season are the ones that will produce your figs. So pruning actually encourages the tree to grow more of that new productive wood. In other words, when you prune correctly, you're not reducing your harvest, you're actually improving it. A lot. So when I prune my fig trees, I'm really focusing on three main goals. Keeping the tree at a manageable height, opening up the canopy so sunlight reaches the whole plant, and shaping the tree so it produces strong new growth each season. So with that in mind, let's start with the first thing I look for when pruning a fig tree. The first thing I always look at is the overall height of the tree. Fig trees naturally want to grow straight up. If you let them go, they can quickly become much taller than you want them to be. For most backyard gardeners, a fig tree somewhere around 6 to 8 feet tall is ideal. That keeps harvesting easy and also makes pruning much simpler each year. So what I'm looking for are branches that are pushing the tree higher than I want it. When I find one, I'll make what's called a heading cut. That just means shortening the branch by cutting it back to a lower point. What that does is encourage the tree to branch outward instead of continuing to grow straight up. And remember, figs fruit on new growth. So when you shorten a branch like this, the tree usually responds by producing several new shoots below the cut, which actually increases your fruiting wood. So if your fig tree is getting too tall, don't be afraid to shorten those branches. It helps keep the tree compact and productive. The next thing I look for are strong vertical shoots. Fig trees love to send these straight up branches from the middle of the tree. They grow fast, but they don't always contribute to the structure we want. When too many of these shoots grow upward in the center of the tree, they create a lot of shade and crowd the canopy. So when I see a strong vertical shoot growing right through the middle of the tree, that's usually a good candidate for removal. What I'm trying to create is a structure where the main branches grow outward instead of straight up. That lets sunlight reach more of the tree and keeps the canopy open. Now, sometimes I'll remove the entire vertical shoot, and other times I'll shorten it, depending on how it fits into the shape of the tree. But the basic rule is simple. If a branch is shooting straight up and crowding the center of the tree, or could crowd the center of the tree once it produces its own side branches, it's usually better to remove it. Next, I look inside the canopy of the tree. Even on a young tree like this one, you'll often see branches that are crossing each other or grow inward toward the center. Branches that rub against each other can eventually damage the bark and create problems later on. But more importantly, crowded branches block sunlight. And sunlight is one of the most important factors in fruit production. The more light that reaches the branches, the more productive those branches tend to be. So if I see two branches crossing, I'll usually remove the weaker one and leave the stronger branch. And if I see a branch that's growing directly toward the center of the tree, I'll remove that as well. The goal is to create a canopy that's open enough for sunlight and airflow to move freely through the plant, and this helps the tree stay healthy and also encourages more productive growth. Once the height is controlled and the canopy is opened up, the last step is shaping. With a younger fig tree like this one, I'm thinking about how the tree will grow over the next several years. Ideally, you want a handful of strong main branches growing outward from the center of the tree. Those branches form the framework that supports all the fruiting growth in the future. So if I see a branch that's well positioned and growing outward, that's a branch I want to keep. If I see a branch that's poorly positioned or right next to another one and likely to crowd the tree later on, I'll remove it now while the tree is still young. Pruning early in the tree's life like this makes it much easier in the future because the structure of the tree is already established. Now, a quick note for warm climate gardeners. If you live in a warm climate like I do, your fig tree might never fully go dormant, which we talked about earlier, and which mine didn't. That means when you're pruning, the tree may already have leaves or new growth starting, and that's completely fine. The main difference is you just want to avoid removing too much growth at once. Stick to shaping cuts and removing problem branches, and your tree will respond just fine. Fig trees are very forgiving and they bounce back quickly from pruning. The biggest mistake I see gardeners make with fig trees is simply being afraid to prune them. The truth is, fig trees actually respond very well to pruning. And when you prune correctly, and sometimes even when you make mistakes, you're still encouraging the tree to produce strong new growth, and that's exactly where your figs will develop. So don't be afraid to make a few cuts. Just focus on shaping the tree, opening up the canopy, and keeping the height manageable. Now, before I finish up here, I want to show you something really cool. Every branch we just pruned off this tree can actually become a brand new fig tree really easily. Instead of throwing these cuttings away, you can use them to propagate new trees. So if you want to turn one fig tree into 5 or 10 or even a whole forest of them, this is how you do it. What you're looking for are healthy cuttings about 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch thick. The younger branches that grew this past year are the best candidates. And if they're really long, you can cut them into several pieces, just one branch. You want about 8 to 10 inches long is really ideal. And from there, you can simply stick those cuttings into a pot filled with moist potting mix. Keep the soil slightly damp, and in a few weeks, those cuttings will start developing roots. Fig trees are actually one of the easiest fruit trees to propagate this way. And even if a few of these cuttings take root, you've just turned today's pruning job into several brand new fig trees. If you want to get even more out of your garden this year, I'd watch this video next. I'll see you guys next time.